Welcome back, everybody. This is the 6th episode of the Gray Area podcast. Last episode, we talked about the production phase of our movie Fragile Fish, which can be seen at fragilefish.com. We're also working on a new website for the podcast and a bunch of other stuff. Really cool stuff, our video production, movie production, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to be talking about sports. We're going to be talking about UFC 214. The Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier fight. This young man sitting next to me is going to kind of give a little bit of a insight on that. If you haven't seen it, pause this, go watch it. It was an awesome fight. I caught the highlights. Tanner here caught the actual fight. We're also going to be doing a pretty silly segment later on. Pretty silly segment.
It's a good name.
Yeah, pretty silly. So yeah, let's talk about this fight, man. I saw the highlights of it. What was the fight like watching it? I was really excited because Jon Jones has been out for a year. Is that what his suspension was?
Yeah, but I think he was out for like 15 months or something. It was a pretty long layoff. Yeah, so essentially with UFC 214, it was actually, I think, supposedly like the biggest card in recent history for the UFC. They've been kind of struggling for a little bit. Well, yeah, but no, for real, like in general, they had been struggling. So outside of Conor McGregor, basically. So UFC 214 was headlined by Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. There was also two other title fights, which would have been Chris Cyborg and Tanya Evinger, I think her name was, and then the terribly boring Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia fight. So essentially, the big one, of course, would be the Jon Jones DC fight. I think it was a really good fight. I was hoping, to be honest, I was kind of hoping it would go to decision.
No, those are boring.
Only if it's terrible fighters I guess Tyron Woodley's a fantastic fighter, but the matchup stylistically was just super, super boring. But the Jon Jones-Daniel Cormier fight was pretty awesome. The first round, I think, was pretty clear to Jon Jones. Daniel Cormier tagged him, I think, twice, from what I noticed. Of course, I'm not an expert. And then Daniel Cormier, I think, was even more clearly a winner of round 2, in my opinion. And then round 3, I think it was pretty even. And then Jon Jones caught him with a head kick and then finished the fight shortly after. Honestly, it was just, the whole situation was so weird because as I was watching it, I was watching the live pay-per-view somewhere, and it was interesting because after Daniel Cormier got finished pretty brutally, like it was actually kind of tough to watch because I think, to be honest, I think he got punched like 6 times extra from when he needed to. Big John McCarthy's a good ref, but I just think he let it go too long, which he's now posted on Twitter that he agrees with that sentiment. But I just thought it was kind of scary because Daniel Cormier clearly was concussed after getting brutally knocked out. Then he tries to get up, people helping him, and he just shakes people off, but he's super unsteady. And then they won't let him out of the octagon to like receive medical attention. They like force him to stay in there. And then Joe Rogan eventually interviews him, which Joe Rogan also has since apologized. But it was just a weird situation because it was like a built-up title fight. The fight was going awesomely.
Plus, there was a lot of hype around it because Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier went on. Who interviewed them? Was it ESPN? Somebody, and basically they were just going at it. They've been going at it for a long time.
It's a rivalry. So, anyways,
it was their second fight. If you don't know, it was their second fight. Jon Jones said a lot of shit. You know, he was on cocaine and other shit. Last time I beat Daniel Cormier thought he was on steroids, which
you're drinking that one.
You're drinking that one.
Thanks.
Which USADA, who can you explain what USADA does? Basically, they make sure that no one is on anything illegal.
I don't know what the name is if we want to look it up, but they're essentially over like the drug testing in the UFC. They're headed up by, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it's just essentially like a big organization that watches over
anti-doping agency is what they do.
U.S. Anti-Doping Agency. It's really changed the sport in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of fighters that have kind of greatly degraded since USADA's been in place for the UFC, which in a lot of ways is great because it cleans up the fight game. But we have seen a good number of fighters really go down since USADA has come up. Like I think Johnny Hendricks, Jose Aldo, those just to name a few, and those were like champs. Since then, they've been on a pretty lame streak. So
Jon Jones is back.
Yep, Jon Jones is back. He beats Daniel Cormier, but he's really respectful in the post-fight interview, which I was really grateful for, just because I think DC was a good champ, and I mean he is the greatest, like outside essentially of Jon Jones, because I just don't think anyone's better than him. So it's like he was great up until inevitably he'd have to fight Jon again, and most people realize that he would probably lose again. But the big thing in this...
well, Daniel Cormier even said, he said, everyone else along the way was just a speed bump. I was always training to fight Jon Jones again.
Right.
When he came back from his suspension.
Yep. So
to be clear, he didn't get suspended for cocaine. He was suspended for failing a drug test. I think it was either beta blockers. He thought he had.
Initially, it was estrogen blockers, and then it came out basically a fake Cialis. From what I understand,
dick pills.
Basically, yeah. It's the same thing as Viagra. Cialis and Viagra are similar.
Yeah,
this one was just like one of the 7-Eleven versions.
The Rhino one.
Sure, I don't really know, but I
thought you were an expert on this.
No. Okay.
Anyways, so Jon Jones basically at the end of the fight or post-fight interview, he's with his brothers. They're kind of joking around. He gives him a kiss, and then basically they ask the reporter or the interviewers ask, "What's next?" And he replies with
calling out Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's exciting though. Like I think part of the whole thing, like it sounds old school, but it's not really. Like everyone's going to fight to become the champion. You win fights, you get a title fight, you beat the champ, you're the champ, or you defend if you are the champ, you defend that title. Whereas now everyone's kind of looking for the money fights, which is fun as a viewer in some ways. But
didn't Brock Lesnar retire with a belt?
No, he had. See, it was interesting with Brock Lesnar. Part of the reason I think his situation was kind of cool is because he comes in from the WWE and then he eventually wins the heavyweight championship. But
to be honest, I thought he was going to get his ass kicked when he first came to UFC.
He got the what was it? Like he defended against Shane Carwin and then Cain Velasquez beat him up and then he retired. I think after that or after the Overeem fight, and he was also had been diagnosed with diverticulitis, which is like actually a serious health concern. So he was fighting probably at like 50%. But because when he came back for the Mark Hunt fight and just destroyed Mark Hunt, that's when I was really excited because I liked watching Brock Lesnar fight because he was just kind of like an outsider who was like this of gigantic fame, comes in and dominates a different sport altogether. So I think it'd be exciting to see someone like him fight Jon Jones, even though I think the skill level is different for sure. I don't know if you guys heard that in the mic, but there was he was just playing some little video. But I think it'd be an interesting fight. What do you think coming from like a less into UFC type person?
Brock Lesnar, man, he's a scary looking fucking dude, man.
Yeah, he is.
I'm looking at his stats right now. He's only 5-3, but if anyone's ever seen Brock Lesnar, unfortunately we watched WWE a couple times, so we were familiar with him.
A couple.
He's a huge dude. Like, he is ungodly big, but he's also 40 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jon Jones is
30.
Yeah, but he's also more cut up than he's ever been.
Dude, but Brock Lesnar's like 270, 280, then cuts down to the UFC. And
265 is what he fights at, but his walking weight's probably like 280.
Meaning he is cutting down to meet that 265 limit. But dude, he's freaking a jacked 265. Like he's basically a 300-pound man with abs. That's freaking crazy.
Yeah,
that is freaking crazy.
I mean, obviously, I think Jon Jones will be too athletic for him, too young, too agile.
Yeah, I think the only situation I think I think it'll be entertaining no matter what because I think both of them are really explosive athletes. The only way I see Jon not winning is if. Alexander Gustafsson was the only guy to take him down, I think, or maybe DC did too. But basically, he just doesn't get taken down. So I think the only way...
he gets taken down. Brock Lesnar's a world-class wrestler.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he were to get him down, I think there's a possibility that he would ground and pound and hurt him. Maybe not like finish the fight, but I think it'll be super entertaining. But I think that's the only way I see Jon losing is if he gets just basically finished on the ground after being taken down by Brock Lesnar. Because Brock Lesnar, I mean, at least, I'm sure Jon...
So what's your prediction? Who wins? It's not going to be a title fight, right? So it's going to be 3 rounds?
Yeah. Unless it's a main event, that'll be 5 rounds, which it'll be a main event, so it'll be 5 rounds. But...
what's your prediction? Is it going the distance?
I don't think it'll go the distance. If I had to place bets on it, I think Jon Jones will beat him. Yeah, I mean, Jon's just too freaking good, and he'll be 240, presumably still jacked.
I say Jon Jones in round 3.
TKO.
TKO.
Yeah, I think so too. And that'd be my official prediction. But I wouldn't be sad at all if Brock Lesnar won. I'd be pretty stoked if he won. I mean, if as a fan, I think it'd be fun to see Brock Lesnar because, like, it'd be crazy to see Jon go up in weight and then knock somebody like that out. But really, I think it'd be freaking awesome if he got, like, just beat up by Brock Lesnar.
Speaking of other old people in UFC, you want to talk about GSP? Was it actually confirmed, the fight?
I think so. November 4th, MSG.
Bisping?
Yeah, against Bisping. Honestly, I'm legitimately disappointed. Like, I think...
Did you just say MSG?
Madison Square Garden.
Oh, I thought you were trying to say GSP. And you said
GSP
like
at MSG versus Bisping. Yeah, at least that's what I just read that. I just read that
or whatever.
Oh yeah, check it out. But Bovada, I think we're looking at who does the early like Vegas odds. People are already saying that Jon's going to win easily, so that's interesting. So I think most people are on board with Jon.
He's talking
winning.
Back about the Brock Lesnar Jon Jones fight.
Okay, so back to the GSP versus whoever.
Who is he trying to wait? Who is he trying to wait and fight?
Michael Bisping. That's how it's been for a long time, but that's 185 pounds. He's a much smaller guy. I just think it'll be a lamer fight, like because if GSP, I mean, most people that want GSP to come back, they want GSP to come back and win. I just don't see it being like a clear-cut victory at all if you were to fight somebody like Michael Bisping. Bisping, I think, is 6'2", cuts down to 185 pounds, probably just hangs out at 205 pounds or so, whereas GSP, I know, I remember he was with a Joe Rogan podcast or something, and he was saying the only reason that he looks like muscular and built and like how he gets like heavier is because he lifts weights for like an aesthetic look. And Joe was like blown away. But I think he's a smaller guy. Like I think a Conor versus GSP would be more interesting, where they would both be basically comfortably sitting at 170 pounds. I think GSP would have the advantage there, but to me, that's a more interesting bout than Michael Bisping versus GSP. I don't know. What do you think? Again, coming at it from a different kind of angle.
We've been watching UFC. I'm horrible with names and records and all that shit.
I shouldn't say like you're not into it. I'm just saying
I just don't remember a lot of shit.
Right.
I've watched a ton of stuff. We watched it back in
the day.
Matt Serra and
Matt Hughes
and BJ Penn when he was really coming up.
You were always a big BJ Penn fan. I always liked Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes was like my guy, especially with like.
I like GSP. He was my dude back in the day.
Okay. So yeah, I liked Matt Hughes a lot.
Which was hard for me because he wasn't American. I always liked seeing that little fucking American flag.
Dude, fun fact: GSP has only lost to Matt Hughes and Matt Serra, so that's interesting.
That was a while ago, didn't
I know,
right?
I know. It's crazy.
But I saw something. I was worried about his health for a while. He was talking about aliens and shit.
I know.
And then we were watching. We actually went to the bowling alley. We took our niece to the bowling alley today, and they were playing a Rory McDonald,
Robbie Lawler fight.
Yeah, that main event fight.
Crazy. I think it was the second fight they had.
Just looking back on the days when Rory McDonald was he on the Ultimate Fighter, or how did he come up? I don't remember how we.
That's a good question. I remember we saw one of his earlier fights against Carlos Condit, I think. He ended up losing that one, but he was dominating Carlos Condit, who was at that time was like one of the best welterweights. But let me look that up real quick because I was actually thinking about that.
So we were talking about GSP. We just said GSP, and it's funny. My sister, who's watched some UFC but not a ton, she's like, "Oh, George St. Pierre, I like him."
I don't think he did Ultimate Fighter because he had already won a championship with King of the Cage before going to the UFC.
And it's funny. Okay, story time here. We actually we actually heard about MMA really through King of the Cage. We never watched. Yep. We did watch some.
We did watch, yeah.
But there was an old fighter, Brian Warren was his name, I think.
Yep.
And he actually went to a church of ours.
Yep.
And he fought MMA, and sometimes he would come in with like black eyes and stuff.
Yep.
And that's how we got into MMA.
It was interesting because at this super conservative, like old school church, he would hand out flyers to a lot of the younger guys who would not take offense to it. But I remember like seeing the King of the Cage like flyers with like him in like the co-main event, whatever. And of course, we had no idea what any of that shit meant back then. But now seeing it, it's funny because like you think some of the best fighters now would probably fight on same cards that he fought at. But this was just so back in the day. It was a totally different level.
Yeah, but that's how we got into MMA. And then we kind of, Bellator, I think, might have been on TV, but the main thing that we were watching was UFC.
Yep.
It's just interesting how times change.
Yep.
Super, super interesting.
It is. Yeah, because he was...
Oh, my God, 2002?
That's what I was just going to say. He was
2002.
Yep.
So we've been watching MMA since 2002. That's 15 years.
That's crazy. I mean, that's like the birth of the freaking sport. That's crazy. And now you see guys like Jon Jones coming from people back like in 2002. It's a totally different level. And he's 30. So he's not even that young. I mean, more crazy would be like Cody Garbrandt or like the super young dudes.
I like Cody Garbrandt.
I do too.
Who's
he seems
the guy
like a
that
really,
he
really
hates?
Good guy. I don't know.
He always beefs with...
Oh, Dominic Cruz?
No. It's the other guy that's on Ultimate Fighter.
What do you mean?
The other coach.
Cody Garbrandt's the one that tried to get in a fight with Conor McGregor. He was with... No, he's with like Uriah Faber and all those guys.
This is the dude with the tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He always beefs with one guy. Oh, God. You
yeah,
guys
Dominic Cruz, the guy who he beat for the championship.
No, Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw.
Does he? No,
Yeah.
I think they're friends, aren't they?
No, dude. You should see, they maybe they're like secretly friends and they were just playing it up for TV.
Oh, because they were going to fight.
Yeah, and they were talking all this crap.
Okay. Makes
Anyways, damn, we talked about UFC for quite a while.
Yeah.
What else is going on in sports? I know there were some trades that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I've always been into baseball, just the MLB forever.
Let's briefly touch on this because we got some other funny shit to talk about.
Sure. So essentially, just to cover some quick news, the Dodgers, who are like the best team in baseball right now, they just got better by trading for Yu Darvish, who was the Rangers like ace. So that only makes them better, which is scarier.
That's not who we saw when they played, is it?
No, he didn't pitch. It was the old Phillies pitcher, Hamill, right?
Because that guy was a
beast.
He was crazy.
Yeah, he was really good. Oh, he's an ace basically that got traded to the Rangers. But essentially, Yu Darvish, who was he's a fantastic pitcher. He's been traded now to the Dodgers, and then the other big one would have been Sonny Gray to the Yankees. Which is crazy again because he's their ace, and the Yankees are again one of the big market teams that are doing well this year, and they just got better too. Those are like the couple of big ones. There's a couple other slightly less small trades, like Lucas Duda from the Mets got traded as well. So just to briefly touch on baseball.
We're big into film. Obviously, we've talked about our short film. We've talked about movies a lot. We did a couple reviews. We did, if you want to go back and listen, we did Dunkirk. We did, what were the other?
Spider-Man, Baby Driver.
And Baby Driver, yeah.
Yep. We've talked about a bunch of other movies, though, I think.
We also recently both watched The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. I think it came out in 2012. It also had Keira Knightley in it. The guy who directed it also directed Passengers. I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did Passengers. That was his latest movie.
2014. Came out in 2014. I just looked up right now, but that is crazy. He did the same director. That's an interesting thing because there was pretty different movies.
Completely different, right?
Yeah.
But we were watching that movie.
Tildum, it looks like, is the director.
And we really had... To be honest, I'm not a big Benedict Cumberbatch fan.
Right.
And the reason why is, in my opinion, he plays the same stoic kind of smart...
Genius-y, like kind of annoying guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone you want to fucking punch in the face.
Yeah.
He seems like a good guy. Don't get me wrong, but
that's
the
just his
characters
like
he
on-screen
plays,
persona.
It's like Jason Statham with a badass kind of, you know.
It's like the same thing. Mm-hmm.
They just play kind of the same character in a bunch of different movies, and they just shuffle things around.
Right.
But it was interesting. If you guys haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. I would say this segment is called Shit That Doesn't Suck on Netflix because 99% of it does.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, I always spend almost 99% of my time on Netflix just looking for something I'd actually want to watch.
So this is a segment called Shit That Doesn't Suck on Netflix featuring Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
The Imitation Game.
The Imitation Game.
Should we talk about it or should we let some people watch it?
Well, we'll just...
I mean, it's been out since 2014.
Yeah.
I feel like the statute of limitations is up on that one.
It's got to be. I think just a couple of things we wanted to touch on, just because, like we just previously talked about Benedict Cumberbatch. Neither of us are particularly fond of the actor, but I think it was an underrated movie. Like, I never even knew it existed till randomly scrolling through Netflix.
Keira Knightley's hot as shit, though.
She is. She's very pretty. But a couple of questions.
Apple reports $8.7 billion for quarter 3. That just popped up on my computer.
Holy shit. Holy shit. That's crazy.
That's more than 99% of companies. We say 99% a lot.
We do.
That's more than the majority of companies in the world.
Statistics from.
Yeah, that's an official statistic, by the way. That's probably true. That's more money than most companies will make in the entirety of their existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Apple just made in one quarter. Anyways, I just derailed this.
Imitation Game. Alan Turing was the character that Benedict plays.
Based on a true story, by the way.
Based on a true story about
during World War II.
Essentially trying to break Enigma, which was the like encryption code machine that the Nazis used to send information across the areas that they were trying to send information to and from. But essentially, for
what an
everybody,
explanation, by the way.
Right. Very, very technical. But essentially, most people felt that it was impossible to break the encryption. And so England, kind of under Winston Churchill's idea, went out to get like geniuses to attempt to break this code, basically. And the movie's interesting. Like it's not only focused on like the mathematics part of it, so it's like still dramatic and interesting and entertaining. But the thing I wanted to touch on was like Alan Turing was a person I've never even known the name of before. I'd known people called things Turing machines, which are now basically computers, but I didn't know Alan Turing existed as a man. But two things I wanted to touch on was the crazy morality question after they break Enigma a good chunk into the movie.
How they basically play God, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially.
And there's even a line in the movie where he says, I'm not comparing myself to God because God doesn't decide who doesn't live or die.
Is that what he said?
Like that? Something like that.
And then later on the end, he said, God didn't win the war, we did, which I think is crazy interesting. But such a crazy morality question. Basically, they chose, in a sense, to not save a number of civilian ships. One
character's brother was on the ship, I think.
Yep. They were about to
was
basically,
that his name, Peter?
Yeah, they were about to be like ambushed. Civilians were by Nazis, and essentially they had to choose not to intercept the Germans' attacks because then, therefore, they would know that they broke Enigma, which is
so
crazy.
Basically what they said was we have to win the war using the least amount of moves that save the most amount of people.
I love that.
So they weren't trying to, it was like a chess game, but the bad thing about that is there were some things that they knew about that they were just going to let happen.
Yeah.
So it's like
so crazy.
So it's like they
really happened.
Which when I was watching that,
crazier.
I was like, "Holy shit!" I wonder if there was people later on, like 50 years later, that were like, "Fuck those dudes."
Right. That's exactly what my thought was. Like, if you knew that they had the decision to save somebody in your family or friend, that would be mind blowing. Finding out later on, you know what I mean?
That's a huge morality question.
It is.
I mean, I wonder how much of that happens.
Right. I mean, you mean today, like within government and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, like,
I thought,
Afghanistan and Iraq and all those places. Like, I wonder if they knew that some of the places were coming, like the place they were attacking. You know?
Yeah. That's so
But then again,
crazy.
I don't think that Al Qaeda is that. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about here. By the way, this is a huge disclaimer. I don't think Al Qaeda is as thoughtful with the things that they do. I felt like Germany was like everything about them.
Right.
Nazi Germany was like
more cerebral.
They were like plotting everything that they did,
which is terrifying.
And Al Qaeda, I think they're just like suicide bombers. People believe this crazy thing, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna go fucking jihad and blow shit up. I don't think it's like, all right, you do this. I do think there's some of that, but I don't think everything that they do is planned. Like it seemed like Nazi Germany was.
It definitely did, yeah.
And then what was the second thing that you were thinking
The second thing, which is kind of crazy, and it's not to seem too political here, but essentially Alan Turing was homosexual, and during a time in Great Britain when being homosexual was a criminal offense.
I think they said at the end of the movie 49,000 people.
Men, right? Were
in the span of 50
in
years.
prison for whatever indecency.
So about 1,000 people a year for 50 indecency. Years.
Yeah. Which is just crazy. It really kind of...
For sucking dick.
Man, it's crazy because you can make jokes about it, but it just seems so crazy.
No, I mean, I'm making light of it now, but I mean, back in the day, you were literally in prison for sucking dick.
Yep. And you think, so what I was thinking about essentially was... you look at Alan Turing's like accomplishments during the war, and I think it's fairly safe to say he saved, I think it even said the statistic of 14 million lives by cutting the war short 2 years.
By 2 years, yeah.
That is insane for the
And he
country.
couldn't get pardoned.
Right.
You know, I would look at it and be like, let's see, he saved 14 million people, and he likes to get his dick
up the ass. Yeah.
I would be like, it kind of evens itself out. You're pardoned. Just keep it on the down low.
It's crazy. But what the final point is essentially the country in the world that he saved essentially is almost the one that killed him, because he had to take these like hormonal like stopping, or what he said was like mental castration or something like that, which is so
basically,
sad. It takes all of your sexual
diminishes libido.
Okay. Which is crazy. It sucks because he eventually killed himself. And again, It's not like a direct correlation, but essentially the country that he saved ends up kind of killing him, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of deeper questions.
Right, there is. That's why I found that movie so interesting, because I didn't even know it existed. And then after watching it, I was genuinely like...
kind of like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, which I love those kind of movies. And
those
just to
kind of want to make, you know?
Out
like
of an unexpected... Right.
Surface level kind of, not morons, but people that just go to shut off their mind to go watch a movie.
Right.
They can enjoy it because they're like, oh, the acting was good. You know, Keira Knightley was hot. Benedict Cumberbatch has fucking blue eyes.
And we're nothing about that, really, honestly. Like, it's way more...
I do like watching people like Emma Watson prance around, though. Emma, if you're out there.
Unless it's Beauty and the Beast.
It's
worth it? Worth it?
No, it wasn't worth it, but it made it enjoyable.
So
not enjoyable, made it tolerable.
Watch The Imitation Game. Let us know what you think.
Shit on Netflix that doesn't suck. Shit on Netflix that doesn't suck.
That's our segment. Next
segment we have is actually about movies still. We saw, I frequent Reddit. I'm not ashamed of that. It's kind of become a little bit cooler than it used to be, but it's still not that cool to be on Reddit.
I've never been on it.
Yeah, it's not that cool. I mean, it's cool, but it's not like the cool thing to do. And I saw a trailer for Shot Caller, and I thought it looked really cool. I sent it to my brother, and I said, dude, check this out. This is going to be awesome. It comes out soon. We both loved it, loved the trailer, thought it was going to be awesome. Kind of this nerdy guy becomes this badass, kind of Nazi-influenced motherfucker. I'm not saying that's cool, but...
Nazism is definitely not cool, just FYI.
That's not what I'm saying. He kind of turns into this badass guy, though.
Right.
We look into the director, and we go, I wonder what else this guy did. Last night, we're looking into it and rewatched the trailer, and we see this movie called Felon that he does. And this gentleman, back in 2008, I think it was. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Made the same movie.
Yeah.
The only difference is the way he gets in prison. This is not a spoiler. I haven't seen either of the movies. We don't go to pre-screenings. This is just basically, this is essentially what we got from the trailer.
Right.
In Felon, what
shoots a home intruder and then goes to prison and becomes what we just explained.
And in Shot Caller, he I think he had a drink or two,
something like that.
Gets in a car accident, and then someone in the back of his car passes away.
That one is less clear. Felon is clear. The home intruder, he shoots him, goes to prison.
So, holy shit! Like it's the same movie. 10 years difference.
Right. Just a budget difference, I think, is really.
I don't know. I don't even know how much.
Hear the explanation, but
yeah, I would love to talk to that guy. You know what? Maybe he's just trying to repeat success on a grander scale and say, "Hey, look, people like this. People apparently 10 years ago, maybe it didn't get the traction that he was hoping. Maybe he said it's a great story, but it does seem like a really good story.
It is a good story.
Anyways, go check out Shot Caller. We're probably going to end up watching Felon. I don't really want to watch it before Shot Caller because it's going to give away the movie.
That's what I was thinking.
But next is a segment that we haven't done before, and. Tanner is fairly decent, I would say, at the Imitation Game. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's a good transition.
At what do you call impressions? I guess.
Sure, I don't know.
All right, so I'm going to give him someone to.
Have not heard any of these, by the way.
Someone to impersonate.
It's going to be a surprise to me as well as you.
And something to talk about. Okay. So the first one is...
I've got to do like an impression of a character within a silly situation or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can say silly, sure.
Grammar changes after you have a niece, I guess, so.
Yeah. Let's go with... All right, let's go with Bane telling his girlfriend he has erectile dysfunction.
Oh, man, I got to warm up for this one.
Oh, of course. Darling, it appears I've got erectile dysfunction.
No, you can't just fucking say the words.
Okay, I'll redo this one.
Do the scenario.
All right, here we go.
What is it, doctor?
Bane, it appears you have erectile dysfunction.
Where's Bane?
Tell me where's Bane?
This is gonna suck. I've got to tell my girlfriend. Hello, darling. You know the sex we have every night? It appears it's no longer.
So we can't have sex anymore? Or what?
I only was looking for one character.
Of course.
All right, there we go. That's what I got.
Okay, let's do one more. Let's do...
No, I'm going all in, baby. I'm going 4 times, dog.
No. I got to say some of these. These are too good.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Find us on iTunes Podcasts, on Stitcher, on YouTube at The Gray Area Podcast, and on SoundCloud.
Watch our short film at fragilfish.com if you haven't already, or watch it again if you have.
Oh, and you can tweet us at Gray Brothers, GREIGH Brothers.
Twitter at Gray Brothers.
All right, everybody. Have a good one.
You guys have a good one.
This is episode 6. Bye.
Take care.